Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Eiren Gauley. Eiren, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man.
For sure. So we're going to dive right into things, Eiren. I like to start each podcast off asking all of my guests kind of the same two questions. The first question, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
I think my favorite, just because I'm a taller bodybuilder. I look up to guys that are taller because I know a lot of people say it's a lot more challenging. It is, I guess it's a lot more challenging to fill out a big frame. So guys like Gunter, I've always looked up to, even Marcus Rule, just an absolute freak. So with my physique, I try to do physique. I try to do classic physique. I just didn't suit it because I have a bit of a bigger waist. So I need to go for the complete freak factor, which I'm fine. So that's why I kind of looked up to like Gunter and Marcus Rule, guys like that, just a complete crazy look. I've always aspired to look like that.
Awesome. Yeah. Marcus was the freak of all freaks, right? That's pretty cool. So second question here, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting at that age?
So I played hockey my whole life, very competitive. And after hockey, I needed something to do after. So I picked up bodybuilding. The reason why I picked up bodybuilding is it was more of a individual sport. I loved hockey, but it kind of died for me when I was playing with these teams that or the kids on the team, I just didn't, if the team doesn't work well together, you're just not going to progress well. And it's almost like you're relying on the other guys in your team to get you somewhere. Where in bodybuilding, it's like it's all on you. And I kind of like that. So I have no one else to blame but myself, really, if I'm not progressing or, getting to the next level. So I started at the age of, I think 16, I got into it. So I was in high school. And then from there, I just fell in love with it, and I dove right into bodybuilding.
Yeah. So kind of like when you started at 16, I'm assuming it was kind of more like sport specific training. When did it kind of flip over or switch over to actual bodybuilding, or was it kind of more bodybuilding type stuff from the get-go?
It was always bodybuilding style workouts. I never got into the powerlifting workouts. Well, there was a little bit of ego lifting when I was younger, which I think everyone does. And I regret some of the lifts I would do, just trying to lift things that I shouldn't be lifting. It's like you're always, when you're younger, you feel like you're trying to impress the other guys at the gym, but not realizing those guys don't care. Those guys are focusing on their own stuff. And I got away from that. Obviously, I lift more smart. I still lift heavy, but I've always been like that bodybuilding style training. And my body responded so well. I've always been like a bigger guy. Even in high school, I was like 220, 225. And yeah, I just responded very well to just weightlifting. I actually bought, because I couldn't afford a gym membership, I couldn't afford a gym membership. So I bought a Walmart bench press, like the sketchiest bench press ever. I bought a barbell, two 45-pound plates, and two dumbbells. And it was actually pretty expensive. I think it was like $350, but I bought it anyways. And all I did for about 6 to 8 months was bench press and curls. I didn't work legs, never did legs. And I put on about 40 or 45 pounds naturally. So I knew like kind of bodybuilding was kind of like, I had the genetics for it. So
now who was kind of the first bodybuilder, like maybe in a magazine or maybe on a TV screen, movie, something like that? Who was like the actual first bodybuilder that you kind of remember seeing at a younger age?
I think everyone's going to say the same thing.
Arnold.
Yeah. Yep. Like Commando. I have his movie. Like he's like my favorite movie of all time is Commando. So I think I've always, that's the answer, Arnold.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's not a bad one to see for the first time, right?
He's accomplished so much. I was very impressed with his show that he put on for everyone yesterday.
why don't we, since you brought that up, because if we got there, I was going to get there, but since you brought it up, why don't you just recap a little bit? What were your thoughts? I mean, Ian got second, a fellow Canadian, which is just, he's having an amazing year. I mean, Nick kind of fulfilled some prophecy. What are your thoughts on, the top six, Eiren?
To be honest with you, I never saw Nick doing as well as he's done this year until he was standing beside the other guys. Then I'm like, holy crap, this kid is crazy. I still like Kuklow's physique better. I still think Kuklow placed second. I think he lost some of his hardness in the night show, and Ian kind of improved more. So I have nothing wrong with the placings. The only place I didn't agree with, I thought Sergio should have been, fourth. Other than that, yeah, I was pretty impressed. It was a great show.
Now I want to ask you this, and we'll move on, because this is something like, I mean, I so appreciate Nick's, just his mindset, his mentality, like,
Yeah.
it kind of like reminds me a little bit of like the Jay Cutler, just like living in the box, right? But what is it like? I know he's got that freak factor in terms of his physique, but just from your personal perspective, like what is it about his physique that puts him over the top? Because I'm kind of struggling with that, just as kind of I mean, I compete in a drug-free organization, and I'm such a fan of the IFBB and all that, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is it that just, again, puts him over the top from your perspective?
One, he looks like a cartoon character. He's just so bubbly, but he also gets to a conditioning that a lot of us struggle to get to. And I don't know what it is. I don't know. He just, as soon as he hits a pose, it's not like when he's walking, he doesn't look that big. When he hits a pose, it's like, what in the hell? And your eyes like go towards him right away. And I think the conditioning and just the bubble factor of his physique is what won on the show. And he wins on majority of his poses. His weaker poses are like his front lat, abs and thighs, but he destroys everybody in the back. I don't even think it's close.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just I mean, I just think it's just an interesting physique, and it's
a very interesting physique. That's what I said. I like Kuklow's look better. I like his physique better.
Yeah.
I think Kuklow would have won if he came more conditioned. But yeah, Nick just nails it every time. Well, so far he's been nailing it.
Yeah. Just gotta tip your cap and respect, right? So
yeah.
Let's get back into your story a little bit. So I like to kind of get a little snapshot of your childhood, your younger years. So where did you grow up? You already mentioned hockey. Just paint that picture a little bit, Eiren, of the childhood, maybe up to high school, and then we'll transition from there.
Yeah, so nothing too exciting for me, like no crazy backstory like Dorian Yates. I had a very good upbringing. I wouldn't say we were rich by any means, but like my parents made us feel like we were. So they would kind of do everything for us. That we always came first before them. I had the best parents. Like I don't really have that of exciting of an upbringing with regards to like a crazy story going up and becoming a bodybuilder. I just like to be competitive. I don't know how to live without being competitive. Whether it's anything, whether it's playing a video game, I need to be all in. It's like anything I do, I want to be the best at that. So if it's bodybuilding, I'm all in. Like I'm all into that sport. So I can't half-ass anything. So
that's a good mentality, man, especially when you get into bodybuilding. Now you brought up hockey earlier. How long did you play hockey, and was it I'm assuming you grew up in Canada, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So hockey is kind of like football here in the States. I mean, it's kind of everything, right?
Yeah. So with hockey, from as young as my dad could put skates on me, he loved hockey. I loved hockey too. And I did it from as young as I could be all the way till 17, 18. I played AAA, AA hockey my whole life. Yeah.
So what, from hockey, what's something do you feel like you learned in all those years of doing hockey that kind of has carried over to you now being a professional bodybuilder?
Just like you know what, with hockey, I learned that you got to be all in. You got to love the whole process of it. So I didn't love the off season training, you know, whereas if I did, I think it would have brought me to another level in hockey and I kind of continued pursuing it. So it kind of opened my, I don't know how to say this. So like, it's one of those sports, like anything, you got to be all in. Like with hockey, like my older brother was a better hockey player than me because he would be outside shooting pucks all day. I was the one playing video games after I was done hockey. I didn't really care. So with bodybuilding, it's like, it's a pretty crazy lifestyle because everything revolves around bodybuilding. No matter what you do, whether if you're going to an event, you're going to anything, it's like, I got to pack this, and this, you know, like I can't skip a meal because bodybuilding comes first, and seems a little selfish, but I think it's the only way you can really excel in this sport.
100%, 100%. Okay, so let's dive into all things bodybuilding then. So you started lifting weights when you're 16. When did you? How old were you? When did you first compete?
My first show was Men's Physique, and I stepped on stage around 235. I think I was probably the biggest guy there. As soon as I got off stage, I came like last or something close to last, and I was shredded. I thought I looked really good. When I got off stage, the judges came up to me like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I thought I was doing okay. And they're like, "You would have won the bodybuilding show." And at the time, I didn't like bodybuilding. I don't know. Not that I didn't like bodybuilding. I didn't think my physique would be good enough to be a bodybuilder because I'm 6'3", and to fill out a 6'3" frame was going to take a lot of work. But after that, that's when they kind of like told me, you know, I should pursue bodybuilding. However, I didn't go to bodybuilding. I actually went to the WBFF, and I competed. I guess what do they call it? The Classic Physique. I actually went pro there in Vegas. But again, I didn't. The top 5 guys looked nothing like me, so I didn't stand out in a good way. It's kind of like me standing beside C-Bum. I just wouldn't do well in Classic. So it was kind of one of those things where after that, I'm like, I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to be a freak. I want to be a 300-pound mass monster. And then from there, yeah, it's just been the best decision I've ever made.
Now, so you started, so you actually didn't compete till kind of later on, like, I mean, what, in your mid-20s, late 20s? What was kind of the age frame?
22 was my first show as physique. And then I did about 2 years with the WBFF. And then ever since, it's been bodybuilding. So the first show I ever did, I think it was 2015 Fuad show, was my first bodybuilding show. So it's been like 6 years I've been doing bodybuilding. So it's been too long.
So now let's talk about from just kind of doing a little bit of studying up before our conversation, just on your Instagram. So in 2019, you earned your pro card at the Canadian Nationals. Is that correct?
Yep.
Cool. Why don't you kind of talk about that experience and just maybe just some of the feelings, the emotions of receiving and earning that pro card?
That was a pretty crazy show. There was actually like a ton of bodybuilders showed up to that show. I can't remember how many there were. There was like 80 or something or more. It was really cool because I did North Americans about 4 weeks prior to that. And one of the judges came up to me. He's like, "You would have done a lot better, or you could have possibly won if you flexed your glutes." And I didn't realize I was hitting a pose incorrectly. I tried to change it 2 weeks out, and I was pretty upset with myself when they told me that, because I wouldn't even post a picture of my back shot. So later we decided to do Canadian Nationals, and winning that was, I think, it left me in a better position. I felt better about going to win Mr. Canada, just instead of winning North Americans, winning it, you know, in your hometown in Canada was such a crazy feeling. I'm not someone that cries, and it was hard to deal with because you kind of like look back at how much work goes into bodybuilding. It's like crazy to look back. It kind of like all happened at once. I'm like, holy crap, this is actually happening. Because before I was placing like second, third, second, you know, like so close every time. And I almost doubted myself going into the show because I'm like, I'm probably not going to win again. Not a good mentality to have, but after I saw pictures, I'm like, holy crap, I definitely earned it.
Now, when was kind of the turning point or the moment that you realized that, hey, I do have the potential, to be an IFBB pro? Like when you were an amateur, like when was that kind of like understanding, like, okay, like I'm all in with bodybuilding and this is something that could be a future for me down the road?
So actually, there was a moment when that happened. So when I did the Arnolds as an amateur, I was at the Powerhouse gym. I'm sure you've heard of that gym. It's like a little gym close by to Columbus, Ohio. And Milos came up to me and he was just amazed with my physique. He was very impressed. And he pretty much said, I have no doubt in you getting to the pro stage. And then 10 minutes after that, Neil Hill came up to me and pretty much said the same thing. And I was just amazed because I never really talked to any guys at that level. And by going to Columbus, Ohio, you run into all these guys. And it was just pretty crazy for them to say that to me, because I don't think they would just say that to anybody. And they were super impressed with, my physique, my structure, and said I have a very bright future. So it was nice to hear that. Because obviously before that I was doubting myself. I'm like, how many 6'3" guys, do well? Still, who is there now? Or who was there? There was Dallas, who was very good. Gunter was very good, but there's very few in between. But it's not impossible. It's definitely doable. It's just I got to keep grinding, and it takes more time, more years, more patience. But I do believe in now that I will 100% get there, and I will make a presence on stage. And I do believe I could potentially even win Toronto coming up, which is in 10 weeks.
All right. So before we get to Toronto, I want to touch on your pro debut earlier this year at the Tampa Pro. Obviously, Fuad had you on his podcast for about 25, 30 minutes, and he just touched on it a little bit. That was pre-show. But what was your experience? I know you were talking on Fuad's podcast about having a little bit of nerves and everything, which that's a given, right? But what was the overall experience like for you, and how do you feel like your pro debut went, Eiren?
I felt really good going like a day out, and then show day. It's just like standing beside Ian, standing beside some of these top pros. It just got to me because I was working out in the dark, because in Canada we weren't allowed to really train at the gyms here, and I had to train at a gym kind of in the dark, where I had to turn the lights on, and like it was just me at the gym. I couldn't post on social media where I was training, so I was training like that for like, I don't know, a year and a half, and then all of a sudden stepping onto such a big stage and being one of the most competitive pro shows as well, and it overwhelmed me, and I felt like I could have been competitive, but like the day of, I actually had to talk to my doctor about this. I had like a panic attack before going on stage. I've never experienced anything like that, to the point where I was sweating, I had a dry mouth, and it ruined my look. It looked softer, and I just looked like a completely different person on show day, and it's frustrating. But at the same time, I feel like I needed to get that show out of the way in order to be better for Toronto coming up. It was a wicked experience, awesome show. But I think just from not being on stage for over 2 years to all of a sudden stepping on stage with like these top level pros, I had a tough time dealing with it. And some guys do great under pressure. I fell apart, and I usually don't, which is frustrating, but I fell apart under pressure. I put too much pressure on myself too. I wanted to place top 5. I had a feeling I was going to place really well, and it just kind of crumbled, but it happens.
Well, it does. And you mentioned Ian. I mean, look at Ian last year at I think it was the Tampa Pro, right? I mean, he's come out after and said that his wife wasn't there, and it was just kind of had a meltdown and all that. But then look at the year that he's had. So yes. I'm very confident that it's just going to be another learning experience. And like you said, when the Toronto Pro comes around, it's something that you have in your back pocket. You have the experience, and I'm confident and sure that you'll be able to work through that. Now, so you've brought up the Toronto Pro. When is that actually happening? this year? Is it sometime later this year or what?
December 4th.
Okay.
December
Cool.
3rd and 4th. So they have the third is I think it's a Friday, and they have the amateurs, and then Saturday is the pros.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of that's you've got your sight set on the Toronto Pro then for your next competition, huh?
I don't want to travel right now, to be honest. It's a headache. Traveling is a headache. I would love to. It's just I had a very tough time getting home from Tampa.
I
It
saw
cost
that
me
on
a
your
lot of-
stories.
oh my
Yeah.
God. So upset, so mad. But it is what it is. I got home. I'm home now. I'm safe. And like I said, it was a good experience. I don't
Yeah.
regret it.
What just if you don't mind me asking, because this is kind of like the nitty gritty, and it's good for us to hear this type of stuff from a pro bodybuilder. So, after you kind of had just the mental struggle, I'll call it, like,
Yeah.
have you been going through some like just mental practices each day, or kind of what are some of the actionable steps that you're taking to kind of break through that or make sure that doesn't happen again?
I actually had to see my doctor to have a talk with him and be like, what am I going through right now? Um, I don't mind talking about this either. So he did put me on like an anxiety medication, a very low dose. And it seems to be helping me for sure. Cause I've never experienced like something like that. Cause it actually happened to me again when my fiance competed. She was going for her pro card as a wellness athlete. She came second. Um, and I had the same mental breakdown. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I've never really experienced that. And something for me, I don't feel embarrassed to talk about it because these things happen, and better to take care of it now instead of just ignoring it, which a lot of people do. And I just started it recently, so I'm hoping that something like that happens. I know it's probably better that I do some more like meditation or like counseling and see someone about it, because obviously you don't want to be taking these prescription drugs for that long either. But those are the steps I'm taking right now. However, like I said, just doing that pro show got rid of so many nerves, man. Like, it's not just that. I'm used to competing like several times a year. And then I go from competing like over 2 years, right? I was absent from the stage.
For sure. And I appreciate you, Eiren, touching on that a little bit, because we've all got different things we're working through, man. So there's no shame in talking about that stuff. Now I want to talk about your coach, Ben Mullen.
Yes.
He it sounds like from Fuad's podcast, you've been with him from the get-go. Talk about just the importance, because I won't bring up anybody's name, but somebody that competed yesterday. I think he's on his third coach this year, which I don't know what all that's about. I just don't think that's the best route to get the best result on stage. But for you, talk about why it's important for you to stick to the same coach, and just talk about what Ben has been able to bring to the table in terms of coach-athlete relationship.
Well, Ben, I've been with him since day one. We've actually been best friends since like grade 9. And I've just trusted the guy completely. Like, he does all my training. He does obviously all my nutrition. Keeps a close eye on me. He's learned my body. Like, I just find if I go to another coach, it's going to take, a year or two to figure out my body. I'm someone that I find is, even as me as a coach, I find myself extremely complicated with regards to like peaking for a show. Like, the amount of food I have to eat, it doesn't make sense. It's kind of similar to, I can't remember his name right now. The cookie dealer. What's his
Juan Morel.
Juan Morel. Yeah. He eats a crazy amount of food at 2 days out, and I eat something probably similar to him. And to a lot of people that doesn't make sense. But Ben, he's really learned my body, and he looks at my physique and he's like, this is what you need to work on, this is what you need to bring up. And he always has an explanation for everything I have to do. And just being with someone for such a long period of time, they should be able to learn your body. And by switching coaches, it's like you're starting new again, and people expecting some magical supplement protocol or some magical meal plan. It doesn't work like that. It's just, what I think it comes down to is really getting someone that actually cares and then actually wants to see you succeed. I think that is huge. And I see a lot of the top coaches, like, for example, Pator, I think he cares about his athletes. I think same with Matt Jansen, he's someone that cares about his athletes, and that is something that goes goes far.
Absolutely. Now, going to Ben again. Now, did he like go to school or something? For like exercise science, or how did he kind of get engrossed in the bodybuilding scene and become a coach?
I think just growing up and just being involved with it, and there's no real schooling for it because, science doesn't always apply to what we're doing. It couldn't really explain why we need to eat so much or why we do certain things. I think he's just a very smart individual. His sister's actually a doctor, so he has access to a lot of her books. And he's such a knowledgeable guy. He just knows too much. And I wish he would expand himself more, be more present on social media, because I feel like he would be a top level coach. He's a teacher, and he's busy. He's a busy guy. So yeah.
Well, I reached out to him after I saw you tag him in some of your posts. I reached out to him to have him on the podcast, because it's like, somebody like that's working with a pro bodybuilder. I noticed, like, his social media isn't maybe up to par with some of the other coaches and stuff. And I never even heard of him, so I reached out to him. I'm going to get him on the podcast just to maybe, give him an opportunity to share his story too. I just think it's awesome, man, when it's just kind of like with Matt Jansen. You brought him up, you see him and the relationship he has with Nick, and some of these other guys that's kind of underneath his tutelage, and you can tell that it's genuine. You can tell that their relationships are built through the fire. They're built through time and time working together. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. That's irreplaceable. Like time with an athlete, an athlete's time with a coach, you just can't replace that. It doesn't happen overnight. So hopefully we can get Ben on and get him a little bit more exposure too. Now, something I want to talk about, just kind of like your nutrition, your eating, because you've kind of alluded to it today, and then on Fuad's podcast, like you have to eat a lot of food. Just for the listeners' sake, kind of like a typical off-season eating day, what does that kind of look like in terms of, not necessarily calories, but maybe just like your protein, fat, and carbohydrates?
So like the macro breakdown, more or less?
Yeah.
So right now I'm on like 450 grams of protein. I'm also in a rebound phase, so it's not like the craziest amount of food. Well, to me, it's not the craziest amount of food. 450 protein, 800 carbs or 850 carbs on training days, and about 110 grams of fat. So I'm still in my rebound phase, probably for another week or so. And then we go back into cutting down for Toronto. So yeah, it's quite a bit of food. In the off season, it just gets out of control.
Right.
But I'm not looking forward to that.
So let's talk about digestion, because that's like one of the big things that caught my ears when you were on Fuad's podcast. You guys didn't get into it a whole lot, but just talk about the importance of digestion and gut health, because that's something that I really try to focus on in my life, and I think it's something that bodybuilders in general need to focus more on. So touch on that if you don't mind. Like how do you kind of get things figured out so that your digestion is on point, and why is that important for a bodybuilder?
I'm very surprised at how many guys don't take care of this. So for example, if you're someone like eating your meals and you're like, you have no appetites, you're like, okay, I'm just going to go replace this with a burger and fries. Sure, you're going to eat it, but then you're irregular, and you're not digesting it properly, not absorbing nutrients properly. And then that will lead into the next day of having no appetite again. And it's just a vicious circle to the point where you're replacing the majority of your food with junk food or shittier foods that are not digesting well. So a lot of people don't focus on their digestion at all. Well, maybe they do a bit, but most people do not. So digestion, so for example, if I'm eating my meals and something's irritating me, I will try to identify what that food is and I will eliminate it. I don't care if it's something I really like to eat, I will not eat it. So, and there are a lot of foods. So I have IBS, I'm lactose intolerant. So I'm very sensitive to a lot of foods, and I just eat like a basic bodybuilding diet. And I do cheat sometimes, but I try to stick to foods that I know I'm okay with. So I try to stay away from too much gluten, try to stay away from too much or dairy all in one. And like I said, if your gut flora is off, you are not absorbing nutrients properly. You're not going to get the full benefit of eating those meals. And people seem to not understand that. They seem to think that if I get those calories in, I'm going to benefit from it. And a lot of people don't pay attention to it. It's the reason why a lot of people hate food in the off season is because their digestion is very poor. And by there's certain supplements you can take to help take care of your gut. However, it's food first. You can't fix something by throwing a probiotic at it or throwing some glutamine at it. Those things help, but they're not going to eliminate the problem. So, but the best thing to do is to eat the foods that you may not like as much, but if those foods sit well with you, you got to stick with those foods.
And so just so everybody's on the same page that's listening. So if like you eat something and there's like, it doesn't sit well, what do you mean? Are we talking about gas? We're talking about bloating? What specifically should people be like looking for after they eat food in terms of gut irritation or what have you?
Well, for sure, bloating. It's not normal to be bloated after certain foods. Like even eating cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, I usually don't add that to anyone's diet because being a bloated experience from food is not something you want. Or being irregular with a sense of just being, if it's kind of like running through you and it's not digesting properly, that's not good. You're now dehydrated. So, for example, if someone gets a cheat meal, and they're like, oh man, I lost 2 pounds the next day. I'm like, okay, well, how was your digestion? Oh, well, I was on the toilet, quite a few times because I had diarrhea. My stomach was killing me. I'm like, well, you're probably dehydrated. Your body probably didn't take the full benefit of eating those foods. So next time you do cheat, it's got to be, more specific foods. So, excellent. Yeah.
Now, in terms of like, you brought up like gut flora and all of that, because I know you're a coach and stuff too, like for your athletes, and you brought it up, and I'm glad you brought this up. It's like, because everybody's like, oh, just get a probiotic and you're fine. It's like, no, like there's like all of our guts are different, and you can't just take a pill to that.
It helps for sure. It's good. It definitely helps to create a healthy gut flora, but if you keep irritating it with something, it's never going to get fixed with a probiotic.
Right. So what do you do kind of with your clients, or what do you do to kind of like strengthen that gut flora, to strengthen that gut? Like what are some like foods or steps that you take that maybe some of the listeners can take that are having some digestive issues?
So first I'll send my clients a questionnaire if it's never worked with them, and I'll ask them, what food allergies they have or what food sensitivities they have. And then I'll create a diet that I think suits them best. And if they're still experiencing these digestive issues, I'm usually pretty good at identifying what is causing that, and I will eliminate it and I'll add certain things back in, because obviously you want some variety in your meal plans too. And important supplements are like your glutamine, like your probiotics. Those are something you should be adding into your supplements, regardless of your goals. So it's very important. So you got to remember, if you have poor gut health, it will affect your mood, it'll affect your digestion, it'll affect your sleep, it'll affect your performance in the gym. It affects everything. Your gut is like your second brain. So people need to understand that your gut, you have to take care of your gut health. And it's so important. Like if you're not sleeping right, you're not going to grow properly. If you're not, it's just a vicious circle. And it's just find that a lot of people, especially in the off season, will complain that they have digestive issues. And then in prep, their digestion's great. It's perfect. They have no digestion issues because they're eating, those clean foods, obviously. But in the off season, you just got to be a little bit more careful of the foods you're choosing.
Excellent. Awesome, Eiren.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap things up here. I want to be respectful of your time here in a moment. Couple other things I want to. Okay, cool. I want to touch on a couple more things here though. Training. What is now? I know you're kind of you competed and then you're kind of on the rebound, and then you're going to be going back kind of into prepping for the Toronto Pro. But let's just say deep in the off season, what are we looking at in terms of kind of the way you train, your philosophy? I know you said Ben kind of takes care of your training, but what does that kind of generally look like? How your training structured and kind of that approach and philosophy?
So my training it changes pretty frequently. right now, even though we are in prep, I guess we're in a rebound phase, but the goal is to bring up my quads. My quads are a weak point. So I like to have all my clients on a typical bro split, or a lot of people call it a pro split, but all are tweaked a little differently based on what flaws they have. So for example, for me, my quads are a weaker body part. So I actually incorporate, so Monday's chest with a bit of quads. Tuesday, what is Tuesday? I got it written down. It's like back and hamstrings. Wednesday, what's Wednesday? Just quads. Thursday's rest. Friday would be like shoulders, and I think a bit of quads again, and then back and hamstrings again. So we are doing quads quite a bit. However, it's more like an accessory work at the end, where I'm doing like 4 working sets on those days. Right now, I've never done this before, so this is kind of completely new. But typically, we're like mild volume, so we're like around 16 to 20 working sets per workout. Nothing crazy. I don't like the high volume. I don't like the crazy supersets. I do like a lot of rest pause working sets and a lot of cluster sets. And my workout range would be anywhere from like a heavy set, like 6 to 8, and then a back off set, something like 10 to 15 would be typical workout for me. It's hard to explain because my training changes so frequently. Yeah, it just changes all the time.
Do you, I mean, are you, like for your working sets and stuff, is it, you're kind of going, I mean, is your goal to go to like absolute failure, or are you kind of more of just like, kind of get to that brink and then you do your back off sets? What does that kind of look like?
So every set is always taken to failure. If it's considered a working set, I'm failing. I will never do a half-ass set, or I'll never do like 2 sets where I'm like, I'll take it easy and then I'll go full out the next set. No. And when I say back off set, all I mean is I'll reduce the weight 20%, 25%, and I'll fail again, just with a lesser weight.
Okay.
That's all I mean by that. But every set, always failure.
Okay. Now, you brought up legs. What's kind of like the, if you want to call them the compound movements or the main movements for like quads and hamstrings that are kind of in your repertoire right now? Because I know you said things are changing a lot, but are there some are hack squats in there, leg extensions? What are kind of some of those basic movements for legs that seem to be in there all the time?
So being a taller guy, I know a lot of people swear by squats. I don't squat very often. My main machines that I use would be like a hack squat, or a pendulum squat, leg press, split squats. Those are all like my main things I do. I don't squat that often. If anything, I'll do like a Smith machine squat, just because I find I can isolate the muscle way better through, a pendulum squat.
What about hamstrings?
Hamstrings are weak too. I got to work on that. But RDLs, so Romanian deadlifts, that's probably the heaviest lift I'll do for hamstrings. High and narrow stance leg press, lying leg curls, seated leg curls, all the basic stuff. Nothing crazy there. Yeah.
Cool. What's your favorite body part to train?
Man, I hate arm day. I hate arm day. I like training. Honestly, I like training quads. I really like training quads, and I feel like because it's such a goal of mine to bring up, I'm just excited to see, myself continue pushing on quad and continue seeing the growth in my quads. Yeah.
What is some people swear by it, some people might not, they might roll their eyes, but in terms of like mind to muscle connection, is that something that you really try to focus on when you're in the gym training?
Always. So even if I don't feel it as much, even when I get closer to show, it's like anything like slowing down the tempo more to ensure that you are firing that muscle. For example, like chest day, a lot of people tend to roll their shoulders forward, not realizing you're trying to focus on bringing up your chest. So like, obviously your chest is fatigued, but you got to continue focusing on bringing that muscle group up. And I think a lot of even pro levels find that their delts tend to overtake their chest. But yeah, always try to focus on mine. And I find it gets better as you progress in the sport, your mind and muscle connection becomes on a new level, the bigger and better you get.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the bigger your muscles get, man, it's probably it's easier to connect that mind to them. I gotta work on the arms, dude. I got these skinny arms, and it's like, man, if I get them bigger, I think that mind and muscle connection would definitely be a little bit stronger there. But now you own a nutrition shop, or you run
Yeah,
one, is that correct?
supplement store. Yeah, I own a supplement store.
Talk about
Yeah,
that for a minute, if you don't mind. When did you
yeah.
kind of get into that, and then just touch on that?
Yeah, so I started my own. Well, it's family owned. So my dad, my parents helped us open up our first supplement store. They knew it was something I've always wanted to do because I always love the sport so much. I love the industry so much, and it's something I wanted to pursue for an actual career, an actual job, doing what I love. I don't feel like I work. Like I just love going to the store. I'll spend all day there. I don't care, and I love helping people. So we started the business 9 years ago. It's been great. It's been very successful. It was tough over COVID. However, we still did okay. And now it's been, crazy again. The store is super busy. We have a great following here in Guelph. We do plan on opening 2 more stores in the near future. But at the same time, it's just, we would have had some more stores open, but I've just been so busy with coaching, so busy with bodybuilding. It's just, I wish it was put on the back burner, but it has been. And now right now we are focusing on opening 2 more stores.
How is the supplement store business changed, over the years? Because I know, like, back in the day, everybody was going to like GNC and things like that, but with the presence of everything online, how have you guys had to adapt over the last 9 years? How have things kind of changed to where it's like, hey, like, we've got to kind of focus on this a little bit more than maybe what we did in the past in terms of having a brick and mortar supplement store?
I think brick and mortars will never die. It's just, online sales are great to have, but it's, people love coming to the store and talking to myself, talking to my brother, getting the experience, and not having to wait a couple days for the supplements, because a lot of people don't know what to take and why they should be taking it. And that's where we differ ourselves from all the other supplement stores. People will come to the store to talk to us and get our opinion, and they trust our opinion. And I have people that'll travel 30 minutes an hour just to come to the store. And like I said, I love what I do, and I think that by saying I love what I do and showing that, people can see that, and they know that I love helping people.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Supplements, that's kind of an interesting topic. For some of the listeners out there that maybe, they don't know a whole lot about supplements, what to get quality supplements, what should somebody look for?
And a supplement, there's a lot of good brands in Canada. There's some brands you want to just be careful of, like make sure you're getting, the informed check mark along the products. But honestly, the majority of products are, especially in Canada, are well made. They're good products.
Cool. And what are some, like, why don't you give me like the top 3 supplements that you would recommend to somebody that's just getting into strength training, just getting into bodybuilding? What would be the top 3 that you would recommend them get, so they're not going out dropping $500 on something crazy?
Number 1, protein. Why? Because it is so hard to get enough protein through whole foods. A lot of us are not big eaters. It's hard to get enough protein. So by having your shakes, it's so much easier. It's a great source of protein too. Number 2, creatine. Creatine is like, it's the most proven and effective supplement on the market. It's super cheap. It helps with anybody, whether you're going for bodybuilding or powerlifting, or even endurance running or playing hockey. It helps with muscular endurance. And then magnesium. I would have to say magnesium glycinate, which is a better form of magnesium. The reason being is magnesium helps with muscle function. It helps with sleep. It helps with everything. And nowadays we don't get enough magnesium through food, just because of the soils and stuff and how foods are created now. And I find that to be such an important supplement. I think everyone should be taking magnesium.
Perfect.
So
That
top
one,
three. There are others, but like those are, I would say, my top three.
yeah. No, the magnesium one, that's actually kind of a surprise. I supplement with that myself, but I'm sure that is kind of a surprise to some of the other people listening too. So just wrapping up, finishing up, Eiren, what kind of is your long-term thoughts, long-term goals, long-term vision for bodybuilding? Where do you kind of want to see yourself progressing within professional bodybuilding in the coming years?
I think everyone's goal as a pro are pretty similar with regards to getting to the Olympia stage. I would love to get to the Olympia stage. I think I can get there sooner than later. Even in Toronto, I think I have a good shot as long as I can hit my peak properly. Yeah, and also getting to the Arnold stage. I would love to step on stage. If I, what the funny thing is, if I actually won the Arnolds, which I came second at that show, I would have had an interview on stage with Arnold, and I would have been invited the following year to step on that stage. Would I have been ready? No, but I still would have stepped on the stage. But those are like the two stages I think every pro hopes to stand on, especially the Olympia stage.
For sure. Somebody that's just getting into bodybuilding, what's some words of wisdom, what's some encouraging words that you can kind of speak to those individuals?
It's hard. So like, it's not an easy sport. Be consistent, dedicate your life to it. Don't worry about the naysayers. Just go in. If you love it, put the blinders on, eat your meals, train, because the other people, even if it's friends or family, a lot of people are not going to believe in you. But it's like myself, a lot of people looked at me and were like, you have no chance in bodybuilding. I never cared. I love bodybuilding. I just put everything into it. And, I've obviously gone pro and hopefully can become a successful pro bodybuilder.
For sure.
So it's a grind. I'm not going to lie. It's a grind, especially when you're taller. It takes more time to fill out, and I look at guys that are like a couple years younger than me, they're already doing so well. It's like, sometimes I'm like discouraged. I'm like, you know what, just your time will come. Just be patient. Everyone excels at different rates in this sport. There's a lot of guys that didn't hit their peak till they're 40, so it's just one of those things. Be patient, be consistent.
Words of wisdom, man. I appreciate you, Eiren, coming on. If there's anything else that you kind of want to share in closing, feel free. Otherwise, where can people touch base with you? Where can people follow along? Where can people consume your content?
So just my Instagram, which is Eiren Gauley, spelled a little differently, EIREN. I don't think anyone has their name spelled like that. So it's very unique and easy to find. Just on Instagram. Yeah, you shoot me a follow on there.
Cool.
Especially for the taller guys watching.
Yep, for sure. And definitely put out some training footage and everything. So
yeah.
I'm sure you'll probably keep everybody updated as we get closer to Toronto.
Sure.
So Eiren, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, sharing a little bit of your story. Excited to see what you bring to Toronto later this year. If you listeners, again, just go follow Eiren, and make sure, I just ask everybody listening that you would just subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Also, take this episode, share it on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you tag Eiren, tag myself, leave a comment, leave a review. All those things are very helpful. Eiren, thank you so much for hanging out with me and chopping it up, my man.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on, man.
For sure. And finally, listeners, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.
All right, man.